Welcome to MycoWorks Talks. I'm your host, Xavier Gallego, VP of Brand and Marketing, and I'm delighted to take you with me on our journey to grow the future of materials. Thank you for tuning in. Today we are going to talk to Wei-En Chang, Senior Director of Business Development here at MycoWorks. And we'll discover his beginnings in skating and how that culture made him a designer and a creator. We will see how he works with brands to co-develop our precious material, Reishi. And also we will see what he thinks about the endless possibilities of the platform, Fine Mycelium. So stay tuned because it's going to be a great episode. Hello, Wei-En. How are you?
I'm good, Chevy. How are you?
I'm amazing. Thanks for asking. It's good to have you here. I have a lot of questions, so I hope you're ready.
I am born ready.
Cool. Let's go for it. So, you've been listening to the podcast. The first question that we do to the folks that come here and want to talk to us is, when was the first time that you heard the word mycelium?
I would say it was about 5 years ago.
Oh, so it's fairly recent.
Yeah, it was fairly recent. I was working at JanSport as head of product.
Is that
the backpack company?
Backpack? Yeah, cool.
And we were looking for alternatives to the suede and leather that we're using in the product. And a friend of mine actually told me about mycelium being developed as a substitute.
What was your first reaction to it?
My first reaction, it was what I'm recalling now is that it was basically like an unfinished piece. It was just kind of the raw, kind of dried out. It was almost like a jerky,
yeah,
like a beef jerky type of thing. And at the time, I was just like, I don't think this is really ready. So I sort of forgot about it. And then a few years later, when MycoWorks was hiring, that was my second encounter with mycelium. And here I am.
What a difference from the first time that you saw it or touched it to what it is today, huh?
Yes, it was super impressive, the progress that's been made. And also that was right after, I think, the Hermes announcement, but the partnership and the Sylvania bag. So my thinking was, hey, if Hermes is involved, this is something real, and it actually works. Yeah. So let's check it out.
So when you were back in the JanSport design studio or innovation department, what are the things you had on the table? Like mycelia and what else was there?
We were looking to get rid of anything that didn't have either a recycled or sustainable source. Right. So for raw materials, we were looking at recycled polyester that was harvested from ocean waste that was traceable all the way back to like fishing nets from Thailand, for example. And on the leather side, there's customer demand for alternatives to animal materials. So that's what actually was driving it. Just looking for people that were vegan, and they would write in and say, like, I love your products, but I don't want to buy anything that has suede on it. So that's kind of what was driving the innovation.
And do you think that a lot of companies were in that or are in that space where they're trying to find alternatives that perform, etc.?
Oh yeah, even now that I'm part of MycoWorks and we're working with a lot of brands in the luxury space, they're all saying the same thing. It's that their customers are telling them, we want you to move away from anything that's not sustainable, reduce the use of animal products. I mean, some brands like, Stella McCartney, they don't use any animal products whatsoever. So that's just been happening in general across the world. I think part of it is people's awareness of their impact on the environment and their choices as consumers. Like they're trying to be more conscious about what they eat, what they drink, and what they buy.
So it's definitely like something that is growing within the organization of some companies, or almost of all the companies, to create these teams that are looking for new alternatives, I imagine.
Yeah, and those
do you talk to those teams? Or?
Yes, those are the teams that we work most closely with on product development. So they're telling us what their performance requirements are, what their specs are, not just in terms of how our material works in the finished product, but also being able to trace back all of the sourcing.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big advantages of the material that we make. When we make Reishi, we know exactly where it comes from.
Yeah, that blows my mind.
So
How much do we know about like the since colonization or like the
Oh,
first-
even before that. So our material is grown on these bricks that we create from limestone and from sawdust. And we know that the limestone is sourced from quarries in California and ground up. The sawdust comes from American lumber mills. So, and a lot of the lumber comes from the US and Canada. So we can basically, if we need to, we can trace it back to the tree.
It's super cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Let's go back to the word mycelia, and I imagine you like it's 5 years ago, right? So
yeah,
it's like late 2010s now, and you hear the word mycelia, and what is your first reaction? What do you do? Like I bet that you had a cell phone with you, right?
Wikipedia.
Here we go.
What did you find out? Is the source of all knowledge. So,
but did you search for it? It was like, I never heard of this.
I've never heard of it. I like, what is this stuff and how does it work? Like,
I had the same reaction, but with the additional thing that was Matt Schooling, the CEO, that was with me when I heard that word, and he gave me a master on like what it is. So I did the same. I searched right away, like what is it? And in the last episode with Phil, he was telling us that there's a rise on searches on Wikipedia or Google more than Wikipedia. So
yeah, it's funny. I was on vacation with my kids in Hawaii last week, and the woman sitting next to us at the hotel pool was telling her friend about mycelium and how it's like.
Did you do anything?
No, I was just eavesdropping because she was talking about. She was linking it in with like astrology and her star signs.
It's an approach.
Yeah, but it's become almost like mainstream at this point where you're just walking around minding your business and somebody's talking about mycelium.
Yeah, it's happening. Actually, last night we were having some drinks with some of the team members, and the waiter saw my jumper. They had the logo and said, like, you work for MycoWorks. That's awesome. You guys are doing like things with mycelium. I'm like, okay. This is the first time that ever happened to me. I was like, am I getting a free drink or what? Like, do I get a benefit?
Now's the time. Yeah.
That's cool. So, Wei-En, tell me a little bit more about your background. Where do you come from? Like, what have you done?
I've been trying to do something creative with my life, like basically for my entire life. So, I started drawing. My parents said I started drawing before I knew how to talk.
Here we go.
So just, taking a pen and making marks on paper, and eventually that got me into a graphic design career. Briefly, I was super into skateboarding, so I was art director at a skateboarding magazine.
You skate yourself, I imagine?
Not anymore, because
back in the day?
Back in the day, yeah, that's what I lived for. So that's all I cared about. I wasn't very good at it, but I could draw, so that was like my avenue to get into the industry.
Got it.
So being able to draw, being able to type and to spell properly created a career as an art director. So I did that for a few years and then transitioned over into shoe design. So
did you start with skate shoes?
Yep, I started with skate shoes because that's it just followed the passion wherever it leads to new opportunities. So I feel super fortunate that I didn't take a conventional path. And I've met incredible people and like got to work with athletes and my heroes.
Yeah, can you drop some names? Did you meet someone?
Can I drop some names? Danny Wei, who's pretty famous for being the first skateboarder to jump out of a helicopter onto a ramp and set all sorts of world records for height and distance. I've done a bunch of shoes that he's worn. I started an athleisure shoe company about 20 years ago now, with a couple of my heroes, Mike Carroll, who actually grew up in San Francisco, one of the most amazing skateboarders that's ever lived. So it was kind of a thrill, being business partners with these people that I really looked up to. Yeah, I feel really lucky that I've been able to apply my talents to something that I really enjoyed. That's evolved into where I am now.
Yeah, it feels natural, the progression, but there is a moment where something clicked, right? Like from designing to innovation. When was that moment?
I was working for Quicksilver at the time, and I really saw a need for innovation within like the surf and skate industry, because people were using styrofoam for the surfboards. Like there's neoprene, there's all sorts of plastic products. None of the polyester was being recycled. So I saw a need to change the paradigm because the surf industry, it's all about respect for the oceans and all this kind of stuff. But it actually creates a lot of waste. Like traveling, like all these trips to Fiji to go surf the waves. There's tons of carbon being output into the air. So looking at it from an environmental standpoint as well as a performance standpoint too, because people are putting their lives on the line when they're surfing giant waves, for example. So the stuff still needs to function properly, but we were looking at different ways to incorporate, like, say, more natural materials, or at least have some circularity in the product life cycle so that when you're done using it, you can bring it back and maybe get a discount on the new thing, and then we could take care of the recycling portion, and then send it all the way back to like the pellet form for polyester, for example. Like it comes in pellets, and then those get melted down and extruded into the yarns, and then the yarns get woven into the textiles.
Oh, interesting. That's crazy. So tell me, what year was that, more or less?
That was probably 2010-ish, like around that time.
So what I want to understand is, like, at what stage was the industry around circularity? Because right now it's a term that we hear in every single conference, right? It's like they're dropping circularity constantly. It sounds really good. But how was the landscape back in 2010?
At that time, people were talking about plastic waste in the oceans as an issue. So like the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, all the plastics from packaging and whatever that are out there. But there wasn't really talk about how the industry itself could clean that up, or their contribution to those detrimental environmental effects. So to be honest, I think most of the change that has happened has come more from the supply side, more from the suppliers that make the textiles, because they've been forced to find better, more sustainable sources. Brands are applying some pressure, and consumers are applying the pressure from like the ground up. But I think the suppliers and vendors deserve a lot of credit for the changes that have happened. So that's another thing about what we're doing at MycoWorks. We're on the supplier side, and we're offering something that nobody else has. We can trace it all the way back to the spore, pretty much, and we can document every step of the way, like how small our environmental impact is, and like how low the water usage, for example, the super low carbon footprint. So we're part of that revolution.
Yeah,
the next evolution of it.
And it feels like you've done your own circularity, because you started designing, then sourcing, now you're creating the material. Are you going to design something with Fine Mycelium, or?
That's not part of my job. Would
you go back to be a designer, to design something with a material?
I think the really cutting edge stuff is happening here and now. The science that's happening is really fascinating. We've got researchers working on different strains of mycelium and looking at, how can we adjust the genome to get the effects that we want. It's just, I did design for a long time, and I do enjoy it, but I'm learning way more right now here than I would be like just, designing another shoe or a bag or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, true story, because there's so many people from so many different backgrounds at MycoWorks that you just have to ask.
Yeah, because you wouldn't get exposure to that at a brand. If you're a designer at a brand, you work with developers and sourcing people and factories.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't really encounter any like advanced R&D type of stuff like this. Like what we do here, most companies don't want to make that kind of investment. So they're just like, they're taking what they can from their vendor base. But we offer something really unique, and it's really just been an amazing experience being here and working side by side with the people that have been driving the innovation.
So you were talking about brands now and how they kind of like lean into companies like us to find that innovation. How is our relationship with brands? Like how you will describe how we work with brands?
I think they're really good partnerships. Traditionally, how it works is if you're a materials vendor, you create a whole bunch of samples and you shop them around to brands and hope somebody buys it. But our relationship with the brands we work with is way more interactive. We're tying in very early on with their in-house innovation teams. So working with, say, their leather experts and their tanneries. There's a lot of information sharing and a lot of collaboration happening.
And what is that leading to?
That's leading to the future of materials.
There we go.
So basically the Reishi as a leather alternative is just the first application. But with the brands we work with, there's tons of opportunity for them to customize it to, their own aesthetics or their own performance standards. There's lots of areas left to explore and lots of different ways to use Reishi that we've talked about. Haven't quite executed yet, but I think it's just, the horizon is just really limitless.
Oh, it's exciting. When you're talking about co-development, because at the end of the day, we are working with brands to develop the material. What is it in our process that allow us to do this type of things?
I think what really helps us is there's so many smart people that work here that have the backgrounds to specialize in, say, textile development, in leather tanning and finishing, in chemistry, in fermentation, in biology, and studying the organism and understanding it. There's still a ton left to learn, but I think it's the combination of all those skills and all that knowledge that really helps.
Yeah. So when I was talking with Rachel, she was telling me how much we know about the biology of it, which is close to zero.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Is it the same for all the other functions that we were talking about? Like, is it the same for like the finishing or?
No, because leather has like a 10,000-year head start. So humankind has been taking animal skins and preserving it and crafting with it for a long time. So that we can tap into pretty easily. The thing I was thinking the other day about the product that we make is the fact that it's grown is the newest, like most innovative and most mind-blowing thing. Because like with leather, you're taking, the waste product is already dead and you're preserving it and, putting color and stuff on it. But our material, we're actually growing it into its final form.
Yeah.
And that creates some fascinating opportunities.
True story. So tell me more about like Fine Mycelium, the platform itself. How do you see that evolving? What is the horizon, like the midterm, long-term horizon for the platform?
Midterm, I think for us, using Fine Mycelium to expand into different industries. So right now it's luxury and mostly handbags and accessories, but we're working with companies that are more mass market and performance, where performance is more important. So, we're looking at footwear, we're looking at automotive, we're looking at accessories for the electronic devices, for example. So there's tons of opportunity to tune the material for those different applications, not just in terms of things like strength properties, but also maybe we can conduct electricity or transfer signals or do some kind of temperature or climate control features. So there's a wide range of things that we can explore.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that you cannot do with an animal that we can do when we grow the shit. Yeah,
absolutely, and that's one of our advantages. It's you're not taking something that's already sort of in its final state. It's like because we grow it, we can control that growth.
Yeah. What is the thing that surprised you the most when you started working with it? When you start working at MycoWorks and finding out about the technology? What is the thing that you say like, oh, I didn't know that was possible?
Well, in my head, I was thinking it was grown like in these underground mushroom farms that I'd seen on like TV. So like I thought it was grown like the same way you grow like a mushroom crop for food. So seeing it automated like in our factory and in the trays and the really impressive systems that we've put together, like that was like a really eye-opening experience.
It's so clean.
Yeah.
So organized. It doesn't look like a normal mushroom farm at all.
No, I was thinking it was more like agriculture. But what we're doing is almost like I don't want to say it's a mechanized process, but it was way more industrialized than I thought it would be.
And what do you think about us going to South Carolina? Like, that's going to be bananas.
I think that's awesome. And it's definitely a necessary step for us to really capture the full scale of this opportunity. It'll be great because once we can generate more of this stuff, we can finally meet the demand. Because there's so many. I mean, like even today we're like talking about like all these people want to work with us, and how do we even engage with them? Because we just don't have enough material right now.
So you think like the new plant that we're building in South Carolina will solve part of the problem, or
it'll solve? I think it'll solve for the short term, yeah. But it's a proof of concept, and once we have it built and we optimize the operations, then we'll know we can duplicate that anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's another advantage, I think, of the Fine Mycelium platform. Is you can build a factory next to your tannery in Europe or in Asia or wherever, and really shorten your supply chain and your lead times, and just get that stuff right when you need it.
I mean, that sounds like the future to me, and also like we are eliminating a lot of waste. No?
Yeah, there's eliminating waste just by the nature, of the shape of our material.
Yeah.
It eliminates a lot of waste, and then being able to just grow millions of square feet at the manufacturing site. It's tons of carbon emissions that you save.
Yeah, I cannot wait because for the folks that are listening, when you get inside the pilot plant, it's a really interesting experience. It's a small scale Fine Mycelium factory, so there's things moving, a special color, special odor, smell, and also like there is like a special light.
Yeah.
Everything is so special. So I cannot imagine that translating into a humongous place with all these things moving, with things moving inside the trays. It will be like a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it actually, that's what it felt like the first time I went in there. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I'm thinking that maybe we should like post the location into some sort of like the scouting sites so folks can film movies over there. And like,
but what's great is it's so clean.
Yeah, well,
it's just so clean in there. And I know that all the guests that we bring in from some of the partner brands or future potential brand collaborators, everyone that goes through there just comes out changed.
Yeah.
Just because they're like, oh, wow, I didn't know this was possible. I didn't know this is what you're doing. So they come out with a much better understanding, and they're just so impressed by the system that we've put together in order to grow mycelium.
Yeah, the evolution since the first day that I saw like the basement till today, and then
I wish I'd seen the old days.
It was cool. It was cool, Wayne. It's like it's been, it's a cultural moment. I knew when I was there that I was witnessing something.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a lot of pictures with my eyes and some with my phone, but we couldn't say it. Yeah,
Right.
It's like you cannot talk about it. It was like, oh my God, this is strange. Like. It's not a place that if you tell to your mom, I went to a basement, your mom will be like, don't go to those places.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It's so amazing, the leap.
Yeah.
Like that's like an evolutionary leap in capabilities in a really short amount of time.
True story. And let's talk about launches that we've done, and maybe we cannot talk about the future ones, but how do you feel when you see the final product, when you start seeing prototypes? Because you've seen thousands of prototypes or hundreds of prototypes. What do you feel when you see them?
I love when an idea becomes tangible reality. And that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about my past career as a designer. Something in your mind, and then all of a sudden somebody gets to bring that into their lives. So it's really exciting that we just had the launch with Nick Fouquet. We've got a bunch more in the wings, and we're pushing hard to get those out there. I can't talk about what they are, but they're in a variety of product categories. So from accessories to say luggage and bags, and just there's so much coming, and it's super exciting. What's I think really gratifying for me is I used to just work on shoes or bags or one category at a time. But here we're working across industries, across brands and across different types of product. And it's great to see how the mycelium, how Reishi adapts to all those different uses.
Yeah.
And pretty much anywhere, you can use an animal leather, you can apply our material.
So, I mean, one thing that you're talking right now is the potential of impact, right? Like we can move across multiple industries, and we can have impact into them. So one of the questions I always ask, because I love hearing different perspectives on it, is what is sustainability? What is impact to you? What does that mean?
I mean, with regard to our product, just being able to trace the whole life cycle all the way to the end, to where mycelium, because it's a biological material, it'll degrade and go back to nature. I think that's a great part of the story, but that's not part of the story we need to talk about yet. Right now
we're doing it right now.
Well, because when I worked for, like, the average ownership time period for a backpack, for example, when I worked at JanSport, we studied it. It was 7 years. So that's the replacement cycle, and it just depends on how quickly people, what kind of products people are buying and how quickly they wear out. Shoes tends to be like a year or so. But I think the good thing about our product is we know that it can biodegrade. So regardless of how long somebody keeps a product, if their Hermes bags last, 3 generations, it'll still be able to biodegrade at the end.
Nice. I mean, it's a good story, that's for sure. And in terms of like the future, and more like when I say the future, maybe it's not the future, it's the possibilities of mycelia. We were talking about growing, right? Like we're growing our own material. How do you see that expanding? Like what is the limit?
Well, I'm working with Phil on a project to look at other industries where we can apply our Fine Mycelium platform, not necessarily as a material for consumer products, but other applications that can be beneficial to humanity.
That's exciting.
And so we're just barely scratching the surface, I think, of what's possible. Unfortunately, I can't say what we're doing.
I feel you.
But Phil, like, he's got because of he's got decades of experience working with the material, and he's got this huge backlog of ideas that he wasn't able to explore because he's been putting all of his energy into MycoWorks.
Yeah.
But now that we're up and running, we're scaling up, and we're going to commercialize this opportunity. He's thinking like, okay, here's all these other areas that we can start touching. So it's super exciting.
So just to finish, and thank you so much for being here today. I just want to ask you, like, if you had a time travel machine and you could meet yourself when you started your career, and you had like only 1 minute to explain what will happen in MycoWorks, what are you going to tell to yourself 20 or 30 years ago explaining MycoWorks?
I think my best advice to my past self would be just follow your instincts.
Here we go.
Because that's so far that's worked. And that eventually brought me here. So and here is a great place to be.
Yeah.
So I really love what I'm doing. I love the company. Everyone that I work with is awesome. The brands that we work with are some of the best in the world. So getting that exposure is incredible. And I'm super happy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Wei-En, for sharing your story, and hopefully we can host you another time.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Yay.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed as much as I did hosting it. We are thrilled to have you with us in our journey. So if you want to learn more, please follow our Instagram page at MycoWorks for our latest news and more. This episode is being produced by Maddie Nathans, sound editing by Carney Ballardo, content editing by Chantal Otto.